First of all, I think it's really a huge delight that we have such incredible speakers for the first panel. We have the key components of all the elements that make healthcare sector here on stage, with some traveling actually long distance like Satish Reddy. We have medicines, so from pharmaceutical industry, Satish Reddy. We have Dr. Bipin Puri from the hospital side, and Dr. Arvind Lal from the diagnostics side. And of course, the one who knows all of it and is conscious to all of that is Dr. Atul, Mohan, Kochhar, NABH. So we couldn't have had a better panel. So a round of applause for such an incredible panel, please. I was listening to the what Dr. Raghuvanshi was mentioning. I'm sure at least it must be, I don't know, certainly heartening. I think he mentions about lighter on regulation, heavier on execution. When context changes, content changes, moving beyond generics. Gave the example of CAR-T cell, of course. I think Dr. Habil Kurakivila is also here. I think so. You also look at antibiotics and perhaps I think would be the first India discovered antibiotics. So in that sense, I think that's an important thing as well. We will probably hear more from him. And he also talked of shift from volume to value, which industry has been talking about for many years. Mr. Satish, you remember, we've had conversations on this. Discovery research and the risk money shift to India. I think that's been one big pain point. So I think it's so. First, opening thoughts in terms of what, when we talk of this catalyzing the next wave of growth, regulation is an important aspect. Some opening thoughts in terms of your impressions of what you've just heard. If I could maybe begin with Satish, if I can come back that way.
Thank you, Kumar, for inviting me, and also the Financial Express for inviting me to this summit. I think what we heard from the Drug Controller of India, Dr. Raghuvanshi, I think is very, very important, because let me start with the thing he stressed on, which was the approval for the CAR-T therapy. I think it kind of signifies, represents, the biggest shift that's happening in terms of the landscape of pharmaceutical industry in India. Why I say that is because he also alluded to the $130 billion vision that the industry has, from the current $50+ billion by 2030, $130 billion by 2030. A significant portion of that will be realized if and only if we make this shift from what we have today to more value-based, innovative products coming into the market. And one of the significant shifts towards that is also bringing innovative therapies into India at an affordable price. Again, it's the same pattern. If you see how it started in APIs, how it happened in generics, how it happened in biosimilars, these were products discovered elsewhere, discovered by somebody else. But then, when they were brought into India, we were able to reach a large amount of people because of the affordability. So there's innovation angle, there's affordability angle, and especially when it comes to CAR-T, the important thing here is, again, he gave you the costs. It's a prohibitive cost for anybody to think of even getting the treatment for the kind of numbers that he shared with us. But in India, if you see, who was the first person to introduce this CAR-T therapy? It was, a professor from IIT, Mumbai, funded by the government, and then he was able to get started with it. There was also a pharmaceutical company investment, Laboratories Labs in it, but more than anything else, it just showed the innovative capability on how quickly we were able to develop a very cutting-edge therapy. Because CAR-T therapy is again new. It's not that it was being practiced in ages. It's very complex. It's technologically very challenging. But again, the capability was proved. More than that, I think in the context of the regulatory system, again for the regulator also, it's very new. Because there's a whole host of difficult situation that he had to navigate in terms of implement the current system when it came to generics, APIs, medical devices and biosimilars and those products. But you're talking about a completely new thing, which I'm sure that expertise also had to be, sought for and as well as applied in terms of giving that approval. But it was all done in such a meticulous manner, it proves the kind of capability that we require for the future. It bodes very well for the future. So that's the importance of how the regulatory part of it when it comes to the innovative space. Having said that, I mean, a couple of reflections from what the drug controller has said. It's very important to move up the ladder when it comes to the regulatory execution, regulatory implementation across the country. Again, we come from a large company, so obviously the standards that we have, especially because we are audited by one of the most stringent regulatory authorities in the world, whether it's the US FDA, MHRA, from the EU, all the top regulatory agencies. There's a lot of learnings that we have had as part of the process. We've also had challenges during the process. But from each learning, we have emerged very, very strong. And that's able to give confidence to the patients across the world that the quality of the products coming in from pharmaceutical companies from India are second to none. More than affordability, it's also the very, very high quality standards that are there. So that's the example that we have set for ourselves. But the same thing also needs to happen in India. And it's a very challenging thing because we've had a couple of difficult situations because it's not just about small, big, medium companies. Any quality breakdown, in any part of the what you call the sector, tends to tarnish the image of the industry. And that's where I think from the regulatory point of view, that implementation becomes that much more difficult. So I think some of the points that he's talked about in terms of moving to the next stage from the regulatory system, from the pharmaceutical industry, the way it's moving up, all these things I think are good indications of what's to come in the future. Sorry, I took too long with that.
No, thanks so much. I think we journalists like when people speak because we get ideas for our future stories. So unless anyone else has a thought on this. One thing which we did, at least I and Satish were actually having a conversation. One thing which we did decide was that this session, we will not use abstract nouns. We will focus more on the hard facts, the nuts and bolts of how things are to be done. And I, as the immoderate moderator, will ensure that I don't use terms like takeoff and tailwinds and things like that, which I think is not in good taste these days. So if I can begin with Dr. Lal, in the diagnostics arena, see, we are living in an environment in times where GLP-1, weight loss medication, is like everybody's, it's interlingo of everybody, so to say. So when such is the way in which the drugs are coming, and I'm sure more of that will happen. This whole thing of role of diagnostics in the next wave of growth, some physicians were saying that we will now move towards, say, obesity management. We will move towards, companion diagnostics. What is your impression of what you think will be driving the next wave of growth for diagnostics?
Thank you, Kumar. So well, these are very catchy words, and because everybody is trying to get into jump onto the bandwagon with something new. Excuse me. So these weight loss drugs, of course, they are much in demand because, that is what sells these days. But I would like you to remember that there is a bigger, calamity or bigger pandemic which is happening in India, which is known as NCDs, non-communicable diseases, which is led by diabetes, hypertension.
Yeah, I'll come to that. In fact, I have a specific question.
So what I'm saying is that weight loss is just one of those NCDs which we could brand as obesity. Diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiac diseases, strokes, liver, kidney, etc. One is obesity. And 65% of the people are dying from these diseases. Obesity is one of them. And as the Prime Minister himself has mentioned, that, now we need to control the obesity in a very big manner. Nobody dies of underweight, but everybody is now dying of overweight. So this is just one of them. But to, drill home the point, obesity is something which is going to become very, very big in this country. It starts from the school-going age where, the modern children are out of hand. They're not listening to parents, fast food, pizza, this and whatever. I don't have to go into those details. But if you don't control obesity in time, When they grow up, they are going to become diabetics, they're going to become hypertensive, they're going to become cardiac cases, and they're going to, die very young. So I think I'll stop here.
So essentially meant in terms of what we, from a diagnostics perspective, is there anything that you are readying yourself for that future? Do you see some systemic changes in the way you are, either dealing with technology, looking at what is to be done? People talk of genetic testing for oncology, so many things. So there are various elements to it. If there is anything specific that you have, maybe one point.
Well, there's a lot happening in our field, and right from, testing for what I've just mentioned, non-communicable diseases, and the whole spectrum has changed, and now it's going towards generic medicine, as you have correctly pointed out. It is going more towards personalized medicine. So, for example, the colon cancer is a very, very, telling kind of an example that for colon cancer, two people who are suffering from colon cancer, one will be given a particular drug, and in the same drug in the other person is going to be useless. So all this is dependent upon genetics, and I can tell you from a practical point of view that irrespective of what you have, what we call recreational genetics, that, whether my, son will be a handsome looking guy, and etc., etc. Let's not get into all that. But all cancers also have an element of genetic, part, and which we can not control. So genetics is coming into a big way. In fact, most of our genetic testing is done in the field of cancer and cancer research and the treatment.
Thanks. Dr. Atul, from an NABH perspective, there are, whenever, as journalists, when we talk to hospitals, healthcare providers, the two issues which come up is talent and technology. While there was this draft guidelines which was circulated for nursing excellence, which was there. Now this is again for hospitals who have nursing excellence and get that accreditation, which is an added feather in their hat frothing with many feathers. But from taking a step back, this is one issue which many hospitals that I spoke to at least were saying, can NABH, for example, take a step back and look at, let's say, training institutions, the accrediting agencies for training institutions, and then look in terms of, so that get the talent ready. Any thoughts on that? Because talent is one issue. The other one, which I want to come later, is on technology, because there are guidelines on AI and all of that. So, but if on the talent part.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Kumar, and thank you to FE and you for giving NABH this opportunity to be a part of so many stalwarts like Dr. Lal, Dr. Puri. It's an immense pleasure for us to be here. The essential point is that NABH today partners with 25,000 hospitals, but the number of hospitals in the country is probably 1 lakh and more, so we are probably skimming the tip of the iceberg. Having said that, quality as a system, from where Dr. Raghuvanshi left off, he mentioned two things. One, that quality in every domain is extremely important. And the other thing is that he mentioned that we have a federal structure. So healthcare in the concurrent list has a either key victim or key opportunity for the federal structure. Some states are doing immensely well, some are not doing so. However, it's an opportunity to connect with people. Over the past few years, we have noted that healthcare has flourished as a sector, and today we feel very proud that India has some of the cutting-edge hospitals comparable to the best in the world, cutting-edge diagnostics or rather better than the best in the world, which we have. But the next growth curve can only be built on a very strong foundation of primary care. So we made aspire for the moon, touch the moon, have bullet trains, have all the latest, and that's very well within the reach. But the foundation of healthcare, the last in the line, has to be catered for. And that's the domain where we need to work on. Because till we reinforce the basics, we are as strong as the weakest links in the chain. And probably 40 to 60% of our population still does not have optimum healthcare access or affordable access or efficient access. So this is where the entire our focus on Viksit Bharat and everything goes, and that can only be strengthened where your points come in, where the talent machinery has to be catch them young. So we aspire to do our bit. NMC aspires to do their bit. The National Medical
Anything
Council.
particular that is occupying your mind at this point in time?
So we are already
in this context,
already assessing majority of the medical colleges for quality.
assessing them.
Quality Council of India, we have a sister board called NABH, which takes care of education and training. And NABH itself, you may be surprised to know, for example, there are 264 homeopathic medical colleges in the country. Besides the 750 of the modern medicine, there's a whole integrated Ayush system also. And NABH today is assessing these because of the mandate given by the respective councils. That's one hidden talent pool which no one is speaking about, the integrated medicine, or everyone is speaking, but probably majority are not aware about. So that integrated medicine in the remotest part is also present, and we are in the front and center of it.
Great. That's good news, really. Dr. Bipin, this point about primary care, which was one thing which is there, but you are, of course, in a leading chain in a hub of urban scenario as Indraprastha Apollo in Delhi. Incidentally, Dr. Reddy's founder, Dr. Ranji Reddy, used to way back then refer to Delhi as Indraprastha. So I think so. I used to those days say that I had to go to Indraprastha for my licenses. So I think the world has changed, of course. 2 points from you, since you are in an urban location. A quick thought on the primary care element, because that is very important. How a major chain looks in terms of gaining greater depth. There was a talk at one stage you had that progress on tier 2, tier 3 towns and cities, but then it's not caught on the way it should have, given India's untapped potential. A quick thought on that. But more importantly, since you are in an urban setting, when we talk of next wave of growth, if you can talk us through a bit about how you are looking at your drivers in an urban scenario. It could be the subspecialties, it could be newer technologies, some thoughts there will help.
So thank you, Mr. Kumar. Thank you to Financial Express for having me here for this discussion. Greetings from Apollo Hospital and from our founder chairman, Dr. Reddy, to all. Let me begin by saying that just as this very fascinating topic talks about catalyzing the next wave of growth from primary care to personalized care. Now that's something, as Dr. Kochhar was talking about, primary care, the issues, the problems, the challenges of primary care continue as to what they were. And we talk about those 3 A's, affordability, accessibility, and availability of primary care, more so in the rural setting. And that's continues to be a cause of concern even today. But having said that, a lot has happened. A lot has happened in
some specifics that you are looking at.
Sorry?
Just some specifics that are engaging your mind.
So that's what I was saying, that what we are looking, what has happened is that I talk a little bit from the Apollo experience as well, where we have tried to reach out to the periphery through various platforms, be it the digital platform, reaching out to the periphery, to the peripheral levels by various modalities, having doctors, general practitioners in the periphery, consolidating SOPs and interconnectivity by telemedicine. Now, those are some ways that we have tried to reach out to people. and then an integration of a public sector, private integration, some sort of a partnership where we can pitch in and help and fill the gaps where the private sector tries to, reach out to the public sector. I think those are some ways by which things have
Any
happened.
current example that you are, I just want to, so that, there's something that, we can mention as a current example and undisclosed secret, as it were, in terms of what are you currently working on in this space? Any one example?
Trauma centers across in various states, very often they are not manned. They don't have the manpower, they don't have the infra. Apollo Hospitals has moved into these trauma centers and tried with real time, with telemedicine, connected care, is now reaching out for these patients in peripheral levels of trauma centers, getting them to not only to Apollo hospitals, but getting them to any hospital setting and trying to make a difference as far as care is concerned. So that's just one example. I can give you many examples, but this is just one example.
That's very nice, really. Satish, this point about which Dr. Raghuvanshi also referred to, about beyond generics. And if I look at leading pharma companies, at least today, while there is specialities that their drug discovery, which companies are looking at, Dr. Reddy's also looked at some stage. Origin also, you were doing lots of things there as well. But like the newer approaches which I'm seeing, recently we had Zydus Cadila talking of CDMO space, biotech was been there for a long time. Yes, it's not new, but it's a different kind of a business, different approaches needed. Dr. Reddy's, for example, is now into the OTC, consumer care, and building tie-up with Nestle. And in fact, in one of the last analyst calls, your CEO, Erez, Israeli, was talking of, if we do more acquisitions, we'll get to 1 billion in this. So that's huge. So some sense that you can give us in terms of the direction beyond generics.
Sure. I think it's again a big shift in terms of how the industry is shaping up, because there is one angle where we are saying from a technology point of view, we are saying that from generics, biosimilars onwards towards newer therapies, right? Innovative therapies. So since you alluded to Origin, for example, that's a wholly owned subsidiary of Dr. Reddy's, which is completely into discovery research only in oncology. Right, so it has almost about 19 to 20 products in its pipeline at various stages of clinical trials at this point of time. But that's the program that's going on at this point of time. And then I briefly spoke about the CAR-T cell therapy. Right now, it's an in-licensed product which a couple of companies are dealing with. But there's also been an indigenous development of CAR-T therapies. I think in terms of the company's strategies, each company will have different ways of growing, right? So if I were to again give example of Dr. Reddy's, because you alluded to, Nestle Healthcare plus also from the company into OTC and all that. So we shaped it as a separate area of the business called consumer healthcare. That's how we titled it. We had elements of it in different parts of the company. For example, it'll be interesting to know that when it comes to Russia, for example, as OTC, the market itself, 30% in Russia is OTC. And it's a big segment for us in Dr. Reddy's. But when it came to Indian market, we were just a marginal player for quite some time. But then looking at the shift in trends, we've invested more into it in terms of getting to the market. But then to get to the next level, which is where I think it's important to also understand that there is a shift, because even ultimately you're looking at the patient point of view, right? So we heard that the foundation is primary healthcare, for example. There's lots more to be done in that. But then if you look at preventive healthcare, that's a big emerging area, right? So again, if you skim the surface, which just talks about some nutritional supplements here and there, it's not just that. It involves everything. It involves diagnostics. It involves genetic testing. Depending on the predisposition of a certain individual, there are a lot of things that can be prevented when it comes to a serious thing like genetic markup for, some oncology kind of diseases. Also in terms of health in general, in terms of, what is the kind of nutrition which he or she is otherwise not able to get, but then we can provide the supplements. That's where something like a Nestle fits in, all right, because they have deep research in most of these nutritional supplement, and these are not something which are just frivolous. These all have undergone research in terms of the development, in terms of some of the trials, and that's the thing we are bringing to India through this collaboration, where we've also put in our products, which also went through such kind of a rigorous development, and then we shape that consumer healthcare as a business. On the other end, you will see that one of very large acquisition that we have done of this nicotine replacement therapy in Europe, NRT therapy there. So that's something we have also gotten into it, because that gives us a toehold to then build upon the business. In the US, it's somewhat very different again. We sell on Amazon through a platform called Health Aisle, which sells Dr. Reddy's generics, but it's doing extremely well. So there are different ways of addressing this consumer healthcare as part of the overall strategy. That's why you keep hearing all these numbers, acquisitions, and all that. But that's one platform in terms of where we're taking off. There's also this other part from the technology, which is what I talked about in terms of newer therapies.
Okay. I would be, of course, curious to know from a news point of view, other than this, what else, maybe if there's any thought on that, it will help us. Well, I'll keep that for later maybe. Dr. Lal, you mentioned this point about NCDs, and we are in a scenario where 60 to 65% of deaths in India are due to NCDs. And infectious diseases are again, COVID and all, again has a resurgence. How are you readying yourself over the next year or two in terms of, trying to build newer capabilities? We touched upon other elements as well. If you were to have a conversation a year from now on this, I'm sure, I only hope there is no bot in my place talking to you, but what would be the discussion points you would think, at least a year from now, let's say, the way you are seeing things move?
So I'm glad you are talking about NCDs, because this is, from my point of view, the most or the one burning question. And you cannot allow 65% of your population to be falling prey to these diseases. And if you remember what happened during the COVID time, it was the whole strategy was based on test, track and treat, and not the other way around. So if you don't test for these diseases, NCD especially, well, you have a population at large where you will keep on hearing 27-year-old, young IT chap, just fell dead, etc., etc. So if we are serious about controlling this, menace, and by the way, it costs the government of India also 2% of GDP loss by not controlling these diseases. So this is something which is, waiting to happen. In fact, it's already happened in our eyes. But I'm glad that we are sitting here, and I'm sure people will get to know more about it. And everybody takes it very lightly. So talking to you on a specific point, diabetes, my dear, is still, the biggest menace. And hypertension. So hypertension and diabetes, according to Government of India, there are 55% people in India who do not know that they are hypertensives. There are 48% of people in India still who don't know they are diabetics. So need I add anything more? And then the cardiac diseases, and the Government of India, in its control for the NCDs, non-communicable disease, which I have mentioned to you earlier, mentions only one random blood sugar has to be done. Can you control all these NCDs by just doing a random blood sugar? You're not talking about cholesterol at all, which kills, hypercholesterolemia and cardiac diseases. Strokes, there are other things, etc. Liver, kidney. So this is one. And what I would like to draw your specific attention to is that our, healthcare budget is dismally low. The Government of India itself has said that 2.5% of our GDP should be spent on health. and it has barely crossed 1.2, 1.3% right now. So my suggestion to the government of India would be that, as I said, that the strategy is test, track and treat. So let's go about doing testing. And well, we don't claim to, look after all the problems of the government of India, but the fact is the government has announced these things that they are going to set up more labs, district lab, this lab and that lab. And we are telling you what tests to do. Talking about cancer, which is, coming up in a very big way. So the number one cancer amongst ladies these days is breast cancer. And the government of India says that only manual palpation of this thing has to be done, which is also not done. Number two cancer in ladies is cervical cancer. And that cervical cancer, this is that you just have a visual look at the inside of a lady and nothing else. So I'm saying something, it has to be handled very, very scientifically. There are so many papers which we can quote that at least number one, start testing for cholesterol. We don't do it. Number two, as far as these other diseases like breast cancer are concerned, now there are Indian innovation. Thermalytics is an Indian kind of a thing made by an Indian company which does an infrared scan of the breast. And the lady doesn't even have to take off her clothes. In a small booth, you can do it. We have used it in thousands of cases. It's very, very effective. Anything which shows up there can be sent for a proper, mammography, etc., which is very difficult to do. The third thing is that even for the visual scan for cervical cancer, well, visual inspection is not going to take you very far. So the WHO has recommended that we should now be testing for HPV. Even the Pap smear has been thrown out. Pap smear is an old thing, which of course India never indulged in that testing also. But now we are talking about HPV. So if we really are concerned about 65% people dying from NCDs, I think we should step up our testing, and especially Government of India. The private people take care of themselves. We do so many kinds of lipid profiles. We introduced a term lipid profile in India. So we can talk for hours together on LDL cholesterol, HDL cholesterol, all the other cholesterol, but I think we'll stop here.
No, that's a very important point, I think. But if there is you gave some examples in terms of how the newer testing, newer innovations happening in this, in a country where you also mentioned that there is this test averse attitude, that we don't get ourselves tested, even whether it is for oncology or whatever. Anything in terms of maybe simplification, maybe looking in terms of not necessarily drawing the blood, anything in terms of your approach to now induces, while government can do lots of things, but as a diagnostic player and a leading one at that, one or two newer innovations that you're looking at so that you can address this problem and incentivize more testing to happen?
I think now, Mr. Kumar, you put yourself into a pond which is full of piranha fish. So let me tell you now that let's talk about cardiac diseases. The cardiac diseases, etc., can be controlled from the diagnostic point of view, as I've mentioned earlier, by doing what we call a lipid profile. And a lipid profile can have, we've been doing it for the last 30, 40 years now. So full cholesterol, triglycerides, LDL cholesterol, and I want you to stop here for 1 second. When I started doing the lipid profile nearly 40 years ago, the LDL cholesterol level was acceptable at a value of 130 milligram per deciliter. Today, the Lipid Association of India and so many other people have brought down this normal from 130 to 70. So imagine that 60 mg, nearly half of it has been, we were saying everybody is normal when everybody was not normal. So this is not only awareness, but what we would like to say is that, people should come for their blood test. There is nothing, we are not going to offer, high-flown cancer test to the public at large. But yes, if you just get yourself tested once in a blue moon, once in a year, for a CBC, which includes hemoglobin. So one of the things which take you towards cancer is also a low hemoglobin. And of course, we've talked about blood sugar and now cholesterol, etc. So you can, by making people more aware, I bet many people here would not have known that the LDL level has been reduced from 130 to 70 now. So one way of, having a healthy nation and increasing your GDP where you come in is by making the, nation much more fit to spend more, money on testing. Thank you.
That's important. Dr. Atul, we mentioned this point earlier on technology. Some things, because the use of technology has become intense in hospitals now. So guidelines on AI, this is something which many are grappling with, because I think I did find questions about, the legal liabilities there, the question of quality. Any thoughts on that?
No, thank you for asking that. So essentially, India is a big country and it's a very diverse country also. And the ratio of providers, like we have hugely increased the number of medical seats, UG as well as PG. New medical colleges have opened, but the ratio will always remain unfavorable because of the population dynamics. So the technology is the only bridge which can bridge this huge gap. And if we are to strengthen our primary care, if we are to take quality healthcare, affordable healthcare to the last in the line, then we have to use technology. We already have two sterling examples of UPI, Aadhaar card, and if we are to, and majority, like unfortunately, more than 90% of healthcare in India is still unregulated. People are very happy. I mean, with all challenges they are facing, all small nursing homes, they are happily making money, generating cash, putting them in their pockets. The structured players like Apollo or the chain hospitals, they are very few, 90% is still under the radar. They are stealth warriors. They are generating cash, doing all sorts of hanky-panky also. And that erodes the trust. So if we are to build a Viksit Bharat or a quality healthcare system, we have to digitize the system. We have Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission. NABH has its digital health standards. We are the only country in the world, India today, where we have core standards of international level. We have digital health standards, and we also have standards for HIS and EMR systems. So, and majority of the software operating today is likely in 6 months, the cream de la cream will be carrying a certification, which is basis the ABDM. So many hospitals confuse ABDM with ABPMJ. So ABPMJ is for the masses, for a significant population, but that's a payer scheme. But NHA also operates two other schemes which probably don't get much mileage. One is the Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, which gives you the interoperability, the Aadhaar number and other things, and HFR and HPR. And then there is a wellness centers also, the Arogya Mandirs. So there are likely to be 150,000 Arogya Mandirs, which are the entry point of delivery. So they are very, very important milestone. I think this is phenomenal work happening at a central level, being pushed to the states. So we need to build on that. So technology, digitalization is the only way out.
Very important, I think. Dr. Puri, one quick point actually, I was, before this session actually was talking to an oncologist. They, for example, this radiation oncology machine costs, that alone, for example, costs between 13 to 15 crores. And you have 10-year time frame to recover from it. Like the drug regulator talked about risk capital coming in newer models to fund research. Any approach to making this not just recovery over 10 years, but some finance model so that this can be made accessible at the same time you have your recovery. Is there any thought process on that? Because this will continue and the cost will keep increasing.
Yeah, so talking specifically about radiation oncology that you mentioned, this is you see, a lot has happened in terms of technology as we up the quality of stereotactic radiosurgery as well as radiation oncology. So therefore, these are very expensive treatments. And there is, I think, a return on investment becomes actually a major problem. And making it affordable today is perhaps, I'm not sure what would be the way forward, but I think only time will tell how things are going to happen. But the fact of the matter is that as technology advances, the quality, the economics has more than doubled. It's only over a period of time when technology, as the volume increases, will we be able to get the cost down and perhaps be able to achieve some equilibrium as far as the financial dynamics is concerned.
Satish, one last point, when you have the last word on this, any thought, any concluding thought that you have? Well, I think I'm giving signals that we are already, we have overshot our time, so any concluding
Okay.
remark?
So, I mean, from what we heard so far from different perspectives, from all areas, the thought which comes to mind is, ultimately looking at it from a very patient-centric point of view. There are these issues of, access, affordability, also innovation, which is required to move to the next stage. So this issue of, finding ways to collaborate, is a thought which runs in my mind because, I mean, we keep talking to hospitals quite a bit because obviously, the customers for our products are doctors in the hospitals and also the institutions. One of the things is there are areas beyond just purely the medicine part of it. It's also about collaboration, say, for example, on the data, which we have. For example, because we go beyond the pill in terms of trying to find solutions for the patient, and that's information residing with us. Of course, keeping the what do you call, importance of data security, data privacy, and all that. Is there ways which we can collaborate with hospitals on such kind of research, from the kind of research that they do, and also the kind of real world evidence that we have? Is there more we can do in the interest of the patient? Would be one such thought. And even when it comes to, more at a national level, there's lots more, I think, collaboration. If there's a mission that is set out involving all the stakeholders, starting from diagnostics to, the healthcare system to also the pharmaceuticals, I think lots more can be achieved. That will take a much longer time, but I can see it's time's up.
Yeah, so when digital health is a nice way to reach digital health with collaboration. So thank you so much. I think we've overshot on the time. So I think one round of applause for our incredible speakers. Thank you so much.